News number first. Book returned to Massachusetts Library 120 years past its due date. A library in Massachusetts got a pleasant surprise when a 19th-century book overdue by more than 100 years was returned. It's never too late to return a library book, said New Bedford Free Public Library Director Olivia Mello. That's the message she hopes the public will get when they hear about how, in early June, a book last marked due back to the library by December 10, 1903, finally found its way back to New Bedford. The library typically has a 5-cent per day late fee, meaning a 119-year late book would have had to pay over $2,100 in fines when it was returned. Luckily, the library's late fee limit is $2. According to Mello and Special Collections librarian Jody Goodman, the book, titled An Elementary Treatise on Electricity, published in 1882, was found at West Virginia University among a private collection after it had been donated to the school. Discovering the New Bedford Library slip under its cover, staff there reached out to the New Bedford Library to see if there was interest in having it returned. Goodman said the tome, by author James Clerk Maxwell, appears to be instructional, informative in nature, written during a time when electricity was in its early stages of being introduced for home use. It was a huge deal. Emerging electricity was going to change everything, she said, noting the publication's timing 3 years after the first incandescent light bulb had been patented by Thomas Edison. So I think when this material was being published it was really cutting edge. News number 2. Haiti needs foreign troops to help with a gang-related crisis, the top U.S. diplomat said in a trip to the region. International troops are urgently needed to stabilize Haiti's spiraling humanitarian and security crisis, the U.S.'s top diplomat said this week at a Caribbean summit, echoing calls by the United Nations and Haiti's government. Haiti is the Western Hemisphere's poorest country and armed gangs have filled a power void that followed the assassination of its president in 2021. The gangs control large parts of the capital Port-au-Prince and access to water, food and health care. The UN says that Haiti is spinning out of control on virtually every measure from sexual violence to kidnappings, from migration to murder. Cindy McCain, executive dictator of the UN's World Food Program, recently visited the country and said that one of the world's worst hunger crises is unfolding unseen, unheard and unaddressed. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made the brief remarks during a trip Wednesday to Trinidad and Tobago, where he met with Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry. Trinidad and Tobago is hosting a conference for a regional political and economic organization of countries. The State Department said in a statement that Blinken and Henry agreed on the urgency of deploying a UN-authorized multinational force or peacekeeping operation to help Haiti's police restore order. Blinken told leaders at the summit that the U.S. shares the commitment felt throughout the region to help the Haitian people shape their future to restore the country's democratic order through free and fair elections. But Blinken stopped short of suggesting U.S.-led forces could be deployed to help calm the turmoil. And no other countries have stepped forward to say they would be willing to lead a security mission of this kind. A separate gathering of Haitian and other Caribbean political leaders last month in Jamaica also ended without any apparent progress on solving Haiti's economic and security crisis or calls for international intervention and with at least a few accusations that U.S. support for Haiti's current leader is reinforcing a political stalemate. François Pierre Louis, who is an advisor to former Haitian President Jean-Bertrand Aristide, said that key to ending an impasse over what should be done in Haiti and who should do it is for the Biden administration to withdraw its backing for Henry, Haiti's leader. Why does the U.S. State Department continue to support someone who is by all accounts incompetent and unable to appease the situation? We don't know, said Pierre Louis, a professor of political science at Queen's College CUNY. Pierre Louis did not attend the conference in Jamaica. But he said he was briefed by sources who did. He said that Henry opened the event with a speech and then spent most of the rest of the 3 days in Jamaica in his hotel room, refusing to engage with participants. Henry will do nothing, said Daniel Foote, a former U.S. envoy to Haiti who resigned from the role in September 2021. His resignation was driven, in part, by frustration about what he said was a deeply flawed U.S. policy toward the country, including an inhumane, counterproductive decision to deport thousands of Haitian refugees. Foote said Henry likely viewed the talks with foreign diplomats as a cover to give him time to plan and schedule an election. But he said that even if there is a vote, the election results won't be acceptable to the population. Haiti will continue to spiral, he said, and we'll be talking about what's next in the chaos afterwards. A senior Haitian official did not respond to a request for comment on Pierre Louis's characterization of the Prime Minister's participation at the Jamaica event prior to publication. After publication, Jean Jr. Joseph, an advisor to Haiti's Prime Minister, said Henry attended meetings in Jamaica on June 12 during which issues connected to security, elections and constitutional reforms were discussed. In response to a request for comment on how effective Henry has been since his appointment as Haiti's leader, the State Department described Henry as a transition figure. News number 3. Police officer, aged 19, dies in crash amid pursuit of burglary suspect in Vermont. A Vermont police officer was killed and 2 other officers were injured when a burglary suspect crashed into 2 police cruisers pursuing him, Vermont State Police said. Rutland City Police Officer Jessica Ebighausen, 19, was killed on Friday afternoon. The crash happened as police chased a vehicle driven by Tate Riom, 20, a suspect in an attempted break-in at a house, state police said. Evidence indicates that Riom crossed the centerline and collided head-on with the Ebighausen's cruiser, police said. The suspect's truck also hit another police cruiser. Ebighausen, of Ira, Vermont, started working with the Rutland Police Department in May as a part-time officer, state police said. She was scheduled to start training in August at the Vermont Police Academy to become a full-time officer, police said. We're hurting right now, said Rutland City Police Chief Brian Kilcullen on Friday as he asked for community support, according to the Rutland Herald. Ebighausen had wanted to be a police officer since she was 9 years old, Kilcullen said. She did an internship with the police department during high school, he said. She always had a smile on her face, Kilcullen said. We were looking forward to having her as part of our family. The department had recently changed its policies to discourage high-speed pursuits, he said, but did not discuss the changes further on Friday, the newspaper reported. News number 4. Man on scooter shoots randomly in NYC, killing 87-year-old and injuring others, NYPD. A man riding around New York City on a moped on Saturday morning began randomly shooting at people, businesses and cars, killing an 87-year-old man and wounding 3 others. A 25-year-old man was in custody in connection with the shootings, which took place in Brooklyn and Queens and spanned several city blocks over 30 minutes, New York Police Department officials said at a press conference. A motive was not yet known, but officials said the suspect didn't appear to target anyone specifically. It seems that his acts were random, said Joseph Kenny, assistant chief of the Detective Bureau. Video shows that he's not targeting anybody, he's not following anybody. As he's driving on his scooter, he's randomly shooting people. Police provided an update on the shooting on Saturday evening, saying, at about 11:10 a.m., a 21-year-old man was shot in Brooklyn, and police saw video footage of the suspect approaching the victim from behind and shooting him once in the shoulder, according to Kenny. The injured man was taken to a hospital and is expected to survive. 17 minutes later, another man was struck multiple times in Queens. Witnesses said a man on a scooter fired at a nail salon. The victim, an 87-year-old man, was hit in the back and did not survive. Shortly after, witnesses said a man on a scooter randomly fired at a group of people before fleeing, and nobody was struck. At 11:35, another victim in Queens was shot. A 44-year-old man was shot once in the face with a bullet striking his cheek. He was in critical condition in a hospital. At 11:37, a 63-year-old man was shot in the shoulder. He was in stable condition. Police said 9mm shell casings were recovered at all the scenes, and the suspect had a 9mm semi-automatic pistol with an extended magazine and additional rounds on him when he was arrested at about 1:10 p.m. The suspect has 1 prior arrest, Kenny said. News number 5. Congaree National Park is a hidden gem. Here's why it's worth visiting. One of America's least visited national parks is actually among the easiest to reach. Congaree National Park is just half an hour's drive from Columbia, South Carolina, and within a few hours of Charleston and Greenville as well as Charlotte, North Carolina, and Atlanta. It would be an easy weekend trip. John Manchester, the park's acting chief of interpretation and visitor services, told USA Today. I do believe it's one of our hidden gems. With towering trees and one of the most biodiverse forests in the nation, the park lives up to the saying on its website, "Wilderness is closer than you think." Yet fewer than 205,000 people visited it last year, according to National Park Service statistics. Here's what people are missing and what you should know about Congaree, the latest national park in USA Today's year-long series. Congaree National Park is in Richland County, South Carolina. Its visitor center is less than 19 miles from Columbia, and the nearest major airport is Columbia Metropolitan Airport. Congaree National Park protects the largest intact expanse of old-growth bottomland hardwood forest, left in the southeast and the highest concentration of champion-sized trees anywhere in North America, according to its website, which notes the park's average forest canopy is over 100 feet. Across the southeastern United States, old-growth bottomland forests like that found here at Congaree once covered approximately 30 million acres, while longleaf pine savannas covered an estimated 90 million acres, the park says. But over the centuries, logging, farming and the expansion of cities wiped most of those forests out. There's a big cultural aspect to our landscape, as well, Manchester said. From early Native American inhabitants to Spanish explorers to English settlers to enslaved people seeking refuge in the wilderness, people have interacted with the land for thousands of years. Congaree National Park is named after the Congaree people who once lived there. Unfortunately, not much is known about the Congaree, as a significant number of their population is thought to have died in the 17th and 18th century, likely due to warfare and disease brought on by European colonization, according to the park's website. Over time, remaining Congaree would have been absorbed into neighboring tribes. This area probably was within territory that was used by three of the major southeastern tribes, the Cherokee, the Catawba and the Creek or Muskogee, Manchester said. Those three would have had interactions with this landscape, and the Congaree would have been one of those tribes that actually lived within this landscape. Visitors can get a taste of Congaree National Park within a few hours or spend a full day exploring its more than 26,000 acres. Congaree offers several free ranger-led programs, which can be found on its schedule of events online, but most adventures are self-guided. The park's 2.6-mile boardwalk loop is accessible to visitors of various ages and abilities. Kayaking, canoeing and fishing are other popular activities. Visitors should note the park doesn't rent kayaks or canoes, but they are available through third-party outfitters. And a valid South Carolina fishing license is required for fishing. Freshwater licenses cost $11 for 14 days for out-of-state residents. Spring and autumn are among the best times to visit. Spring means lots of green and temperatures are relatively mild, and autumn brings out beautiful colors. Summer can be hot and thunderstorms can pop up unexpectedly. Flooding is most frequent in the winter. Manchester says visitors are sometimes disappointed when there is flooding, but, without that flooding, we don't have the park. We wouldn't have the big, old-growth trees. We wouldn't have the diversity of plant life, he said. So coming to see it even when it's flooded, even if it does limit how far you can go, you're seeing what makes the park what it is. In the summertime, Manchester says, 1 or 2 gators hang out in Weston Lake and head out by winter. There are also gators near Bates Old Landing, which is not easily accessible by most vehicles. News number 6. Truckloads of fresh farm milk are dumped into Milwaukee's sewerage system. Truckloads of fresh farm milk have been flushed down the drain into Milwaukee's sewer system recently as dairy plants, filled to the brim, couldn't accept more of the highly perishable commodity, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, part of the USA Today network, learned this week. Truckloads of fresh farm milk have been flushed down the drain into Milwaukee's sewer system recently as dairy plants, filled to the brim, couldn't accept more of the highly perishable commodity, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, part of the USA Today network, learned this week. News number 6. You can feel the intensity. Naomi Girma shares what it's like to break into the USWNT. I know I watched the 2011 World Cup, but I don't remember where I was. In 2015, I was at an Olympic Development Program regional camp, and we all watched together. I was like, wow, this is incredible. I'm a fan, you know. I'm rooting for them, wanting them to win. When I got called into my first full team camp, in October of 2020, that's when I got the first taste of knowing I could play on this team. I was in college still, and knew I was good in college, but I wasn't sure I would be at the international and professional level. I actually got hurt shortly after that training camp. I tore my ACL and was out for a year. Getting that taste of being with the national team and having that to work back to and work toward, was really big for me. Once I went pro last season and I was playing at this level day in and day out, living it, going to national team camps regularly, that's when it became more of a reality for me, knowing I could play on this team and play in a World Cup. The culture and the standards that have made the national team so successful, it's not told to you. There's no handbook. But you can feel the intensity when you come to camp. You can feel it. You can feel the focus, the attention to detail, and I think you quickly learn that's the standard. To make it on this team, you have to live above that standard and keep pushing it. You see it in how people carry themselves, how they train, how they recover, how they take care of their bodies. I also think anyone going into that environment has some of that ingrained into them. You're tapping into what you already have. From my start in soccer, as I've leveled up, it's always been, okay, how am I going to compare here? Coming in and getting the lay of the land. Still playing my game but also understanding it's a different level and I need to raise my game. The things I could do at the club level, I couldn't do in college. The things I could do in college, I couldn't do in the NWSL or internationally. It's going to the next level and understanding it's going to be different and it's going to be hard and I have to push myself if I want to be successful. I think it's helped me to get where I am. I feel like one of the worst things you can do is be complacent, for yourself, for your team. Athletes don't get to the highest level by being complacent. I think it's always striving for the next thing. Even if you are playing at the top, on the first team, there's always another level within yourself. Before our World Cup qualifying tournament, it was mine and San Diego Wave teammate Taylor Kornick's first big tournament. Alex Morgan took us to coffee and was like, okay. This is what to expect. She gave us a rundown. It's fast-paced, it's a quick turnaround between games, there are a lot of meetings. Obviously I've known when this World Cup is going to be for a while. Something that really helped me last year, as I was adjusting to pro life, adjusting to going into national team camps in the middle of the season and then coming back and playing with my club, was trying to stay present in whatever environment I was in. Whether it was World Cup qualifying or a game with the Wave, being there and giving my best to that team or whatever group I was with. I know the World Cup is this summer. But when you're in the moment, it doesn't help thinking like that. What helped was staying locked in wherever I was, and that's what I've tried to do. I think it's the same for the team as a whole. We know the expectations for the national team, two-time defending World Cup champions, 4 titles overall. Managing them. It's another thing where staying present in the moment helps. All that pressure and everything, it's outside what we're trying to do. Obviously, there's pressure, there's expectations. But I don't think anything from outside is higher than what we have for ourselves. At the end of the day, we're going to have the great fight, the mentality, the things that have always made the team so successful. To play for the US at the World Cup would be amazing. It's hard to put into words. I think it would be really special. Obviously, it would be really exciting as a player. But when I think about that, the first thing I think about is my family and everyone who's supported me and helped me. I think it would just be an incredible moment for all of us, together. News number 8. US WNT star Megan Rapinoe will retire after NWSL season. The day before the US women's national team hops on a flight to New Zealand to begin defending its World Cup title, soccer legend Megan Rapinoe, one of the most beloved figures in all of sport, had some news. This season will be her last. Rapinoe, who won both the Golden Boot and Golden Ball at the 2019 World Cup, told reporters Saturday morning that this will be her final World Cup and NWSL season, acknowledging that she's known for probably a year, that she's ready for retirement. She said in making the decision she felt a deep sense of peace and gratitude and excitement. I could never have imagined where this beautiful game would take me, she said, her eyes shining with tears. I'm so honored to have represented this country and this federation for so many years. It's truly been the greatest thing I've ever done, and it's something I'm so grateful for. Over a 17-year career with the USWNT, Rapinoe has scored 63 goals and recorded 73 assists. But her legacy, she hopes, will extend far beyond statistics. An openly gay and unabashedly outspoken advocate for numerous marginalized groups, Rapinoe, known affectionately just as Pino, has spent years fighting for equality, social justice and inclusion. Perhaps more than anyone, she has been the face of the USWNT for the last 4 years, a role she embraced. Last summer, President Joe Biden honored her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the national highest civilian honor. Biden said then that, "Meghan is a champion for essential American truth that everyone is entitled to be treated with dignity and respect." Rapinoe's retirement will come a year after the retirement of her fiancé, basketball legend Sue Bird, a 5-time Olympic gold medalist and 13-time WNBA All-Star who ended her career with the Seattle Storm last summer. Rapinoe has joked that Bird makes retirement look good, and said Saturday that, watching Sue go through her last year, I wanted to say it out loud like she did. It's weird to know, and be settled and not say it. I wanted to share it with my teammates and the rest of the world. He acknowledged that the question of when to hang up her cleats is something I've been thinking about for a long time, I think probably since the final whistle in Lyon at the 2019 World Cup. It's a question I've been grappling with and struggling with a lot. The Bay feels like a second home. I grew up playing here, she said. This is the closest I'll ever get to playing in Reading, so it feels special, and kind of perfect. It feels right to end it here. Please subscribe my channel.